Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Bleeding Blue and Gray. I'm your host, Rasheen Carbin. Tonight, Georgetown visits Chapel Hill, taking on the 16th ranked North Carolina Tar Heels. This is a game that every Hoya fan circled on their calendars when the non conference schedule dropped in June. Georgetown has not played its best basketball the last three games, unfortunately. But this is an opportunity to get things right against UNC. Today, we're going to be joined by Matt Bowling, who is a blogger for Tar Heel blog, who will help us break down the matchup. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Rasheen.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Glad to be here.
And where are you joining us from?
Norman, Oklahoma.
Okay, let's. I'm going to give people a quick bio on you, and then we're going to ask you a few more questions about where you're from, where you went to school, and then how you ended up in the sports media business. Matt has been covering high school and college sports as a writer and broadcaster since his college days at the University of Oklahoma. So that's why he's in Norman. He joined Tar Heel blog staff this fall, covering football and men's basketball. He grew up in North Carolina, and his mom is a UNC alum, so he's been following the program his whole life. So, Matt, tell us a little bit. Where are you from in North Carolina, and then your experience in school, what's covering sports, and now what you've been up to.
Yeah, kind of split. I spent about half my childhood in Raleigh and the other half in Charlotte. So definitely got a lot of exposure to basketball growing up. I mean, as I'm sure you know, it's kind of that whole North Carolina up to the DMV where basketball is just everything. So I kind of feel like the game's almost in my DNA a little bit. So, when I realized I wanted to get into sports media, that was something that I kept tabs on, going into basketball. And I've been able to do that a lot through as I said, the writing and the broadcasting. As far as Tar Heel blog goes, I had actually been kind of following them and reading them since high school because I was brought up in that fandom. So when I saw earlier several months ago that they were accepting applications for new staff writers, I didn't really have to think too hard about applying. So
Great. And so, can you tell us a little bit about the Tar Heels season so far? I know they're 7-1. They're coming off a big win against Kentucky, but just give us a general vibes about the expectations coming in, and then how that's played out.
Yeah, the vibes coming into the season were essentially this is kind of a make or break year for Hubert Davis as head coach because this was going to be the best roster that he's had so far. I mean, you had a great recruiting class, really good transfer class, and it's been kind of disappointing so far his tenure. I mean, yes, he had that run to the national championship in year one, but it was kind of a fluke. The regular season was pretty rough. They were just kind of lucky enough to get hot and make a run through the tournament, and then follow that up with missing the tournament last year. Arguably should have missed the tournament, which twice in a span of 4 years is certainly not the standard at Carolina. So so far things have been going really well. I mean, only the one loss to Michigan State, beat Kansas and Kentucky. That's the first time that's happened since the 1982 season, which you may recall was the year that Carolina and Georgetown met in the national championship game. So in a way, it's a kind of full circle with this matchup.
I was just when I was doing some research, I realized that these two teams have not played since the 2007 East regional finals up in Rutherford, New Jersey, which was a year Georgetown went to the Final Four. That was you might be a little too young to remember that game, but that was Carolina was up big. They were up 10 with 6 minutes left, and then ended up losing, I think, by 12 in overtime. So that's a game that Georgetown fans remember very fondly. I'm surprised to hear that Hubert embarrassing Coach K twice in Coach K's swan song season has not given him a longer leash. Is the general consensus that Hubert is not a good coach?
I mean, I think the jury in a way is still out. Like I said, I think the results of this season are really going to solidify the opinion one way or another. I think at a minimum, people are expecting that Carolina should compete for the ACC title, should be a second weekend team in the NCAA tournament. And if he falls short of that, then it could start to heat up.
Like a lot of teams, Carolina has had a lot of turnover, brought in a lot of new faces this year. Can you tell us about sort of who left and then who's replaced them? Especially, would love to hear about Caleb Wilson and DMV native Derek Dixon.
Yeah, whole new starting five. Seth Trimble is really the only returning player that played any meaningful minutes for Carolina last season. You've got, Derek Dixon and Caleb Wilson. Those were kind of the two of that big time recruiting class. And if you type Caleb Wilson's name into any social media, you can probably find the montage of all the dunks that he's thrown down. So he's been huge for Carolina. Henry Vasar, Arizona transfer underneath 7-footer, has also been big time. Kyan Evans, Colorado State transfer, has been the starting point guard. That could change, though. Derek Dixon, really, with his late performance in the Kentucky game, is kind of making a case to take that starting point guard job. Jaron Stevenson at forward, Alabama transfer, Chapel Hill native, so kind of a homecoming for him. And then Luka, I struggle with pronouncing this guy's name. Luka Bogavac is coming over from overseas to provide some shooting and guard minutes as well. So those are kind of the feature guys, some of the feature guys for Carolina.
And who has surprised so far, and who is been less than been a bit underwhelming?
As far as surprises, I mean, you could say Caleb Wilson. I mean, he was pretty highly touted, but I'm not sure that even the people who were highest on him would have necessarily expected him to be as impactful as he has been. I mean, he's certainly making the case for the best freshman in college basketball. I know he's got some competition at Duke with Cameron Boozer, but he's been excellent.
Can you give people a comp for Caleb Wilson, a North Carolina comp that people might be familiar with from years past?
It's honestly kind of hard. I mean, he is unique. I think he's already, I'm not sure if I have this right, but I think he's already broken the record for dunks by a freshman, at least, maybe even in a season. So he's a unicorn, more or less. I don't know that there's necessarily anybody that you really can compare him to.
And then who's somebody who you think so far has underachieved a bit on the team?
Definitely Kyan Evans. As I said, he's potentially in line to get his starting job taken by a freshman. He's just, he was one of the reasons he was brought in to Carolina was because he was an elite 3-point shooter, shot about 44% last season at Colorado State. He's shooting about 30% this season. He's also kind of struggling in terms of assertiveness, kind of hesitating, especially when they need him to drive. And he is kind of a pass first point guard, but there have been situations where Carolina would really need him to try to get to the basket a bit more. He just hasn't been doing that.
And to talk a little bit about how Carolina plays on offense and defense, how does Carolina try to beat teams, and then how do they defend them?
Carolina, probably the biggest thing this season that they haven't had the last several years is size. I mean, you've got a 7-footer and two 6'10" guys in the front court. That's huge, and especially for a guy as explosive as Caleb Wilson underneath that, you have that. You have Henry Vasar, who's been excellent, been pretty dominant for the most part. That just kind of the front court has been their strength, especially with Seth Trimble out.
And then what about on the defensive end? So you're saying basically this is a team that plays inside out.
Yeah, they can play inside out. They're if they can get going in transition, that's kind of a traditional Carolina. You can't run with Carolina. That's kind of they've been trying to get back to that this season, and they've had the athletes to do it. So you kind of look to see them push the pace a little bit. Defensively, I mean, they're definitely able to assert themselves on the boards. Seth Trimble is a great perimeter defender. They've kind of been missing that part of his game. So I think it really, with the way the lineup currently is, it comes down to the boards for Carolina. I mean, that's how they beat Kentucky. They had 20 offensive rebounds against Kentucky.
Wow. And then what about 3-point shooting?
3-point shooting, it's been a little iffy. I mean, Kyan Evans, as I said, has kind of disappointed in that regard. Luka Bogovac, I mean, he was also billed as kind of an elite 3-point shooter, but he's been kind of iffy as well. So I'd say definitely look for them more to try to get it inside. Although with Georgetown allowing a lot from 3-point range, it's potentially maybe they will take this opportunity to try to find a groove and fix some of those 3-point issues.
Yeah, you said that, and the offensive rebounding are things that you said that have scared me when thinking about this matchup. Georgetown gives up a lot of threes. We've been, and I think opponents have been shooting 38% against Georgetown from 3, and Georgetown allows opponents to shoot a lot of threes. That's been an issue for quite some time. In the games that Georgetown has played really, really well this year, they've been able to keep opponents from getting off those threes, particularly Maryland and Clemson. But it hasn't been a consistent aspect of the team's defense this year. And then offensive rebounds, they've had a tendency to give up some really bad, inopportune offensive rebounds in games that have cost them. It'll be an interesting matchup in terms of, Georgetown has some size. Our starter, 7-footer, Julius Halaifanua. He's not always super aggressive, so that will be an interesting going against your guys' size. But then with the Carolina games I've seen this year, you guys, have just been able to bully people in the post.
Yeah, and the thing is too, Carolina's not the most physical team. They can be pushed around. You saw it against Michigan State.
Yeah, Michigan State's physicality really took them out of their game. Yeah,
they did.
In Georgetown likes to pride itself on being physical, although we haven't. Like I said, it's been terribly inconsistent with applying that physicality. What's the starting lineup you expect them to roll out tonight?
I think same as normal, probably.
Yep.
I'll be surprised if Derek Dixon does get the start over Kyan Evans. I think I think he gets at least one more game. If Dixon performs better in this game as well, like he did against Kentucky, then I think you're kind of getting to the point where you're maybe forcing Hubert Davis to make that switch.
Mm-hmm. And then for Georgetown's had the same starting lineup every game this year so far. Malik Mack and KJ Lewis in the backcourt, Caleb Williams, Isaiah Abraham up front, and then Julius Lifanua at center. Who's the main reserve for Carolina that will get the bulk of the minutes off the bench?
Let's say Zayden High has been coming in at forward a lot. He hasn't been great, but he is also 6'10", so he keeps that size advantage for them.
And tell me a little bit about his game.
He's an inside guy. He kind of struggles a bit with, like I said, kind of the physicality and not great with turnovers either. So people aren't super high on him. No pun intended. But he at worst he is a body, that you can throw in there. Like I said, maintain that size advantage.
One of the problems that Georgetown has had this year is a tendency to foul quite a bit. And I've noticed that Carolina actually gets to the foul line quite a bit, but they don't hit at the rate that you would expect from an elite team. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it may just come down to the stereotype that big guys can't hit free throws. Yeah, it's noticeable. It hasn't necessarily cost them any games yet, but it's definitely something they'll want to work on.
What do you see as the big matchup in this game? Either individuals or units that will determine who wins.
I think the 2 7-footers for sure.
Yeah.
If Henry Vasar is able to win that matchup and stay out of foul trouble, Carolina shouldn't have much of a problem, because when he's off the court, that is when they've struggled. You go back to the Michigan State game, he picked up his second foul with about 7 minutes to go in the first half. Carolina was ahead 22-15 at that point. So he sat out the rest of the half, and over that remaining 7 or so minutes, Carolina was outscored 18-6. So that's kind of how they lost control of the game, was when they did not have him underneath.
So was it the loss of inside scoring? Was it rim protection? Was it both? What?
I'd say both.
Okay. And that's been a pretty consistent pattern throughout the season. When he's out, they're a different team.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't had to sit for many extended periods of time, but it's pretty clear that he adds a whole new dimension on both sides of the ball, and when it's not there, it is noticeable.
What questions do you have for me about Georgetown, or concerns that who looks dangerous to you?
I look at the guards. I mean, they both, from what I've found out about them, they're both capable of taking over the game.
Yeah, that's been the story. I mean, this is a very prototypical Ed Cooley team. It's very tough guards who really are the scoring engines, and then big bodies up front that bang, and then a wing that does sort of a little bit of everything. KJ Lewis, starting shooting guard, and Malik Mack are our two leading scorers. KJ Lewis is also oddly the leading rebounder on the team, also leads the team in steals. Malik Mack, lead assist man, and then also is the best three-point shooter on the team. And I would say of the two, I think Mack is probably a little more valuable given that he's the point guard. But as the backcourt goes, so goes the team. And their best wins, the backcourt has shined. In their losses, they've been unable to hit enough shots to keep the other teams honest. So I think if Georgetown's guards win their matchup against Carolina's guards, I feel really good about this being a close game. Now, Georgetown does not want to play half court offense. Malik Mack is the leading 3-point shooter, but at 38%. But the team as a whole shoots 30%, and it just crept above 30% after the last game against UMBC. They're really not very good at shooting three. So if they can stay getting buckets in transition, that's the way Georgetown wants to win. And every game this year, it's been a very similar script. If Georgetown can control tempo, meaning get buckets on runouts and deflections and things like that, and then also do a good job on the boards, not give up a lot of offensive rebounds, then they tend to win. And when they lose, like for instance in Orlando against Dayton and against Miami, they've shot themselves out of the game, and they've just given up, and they've gotten beaten on the boards. How do you think Carolina will approach trying to slow down Mack and Lewis?
I would say just tight perimeter defense. Try to force them to go inside.
Do you have a stopper on defense?
Seth Trimble was
Carolina
that guy.
have a defensive stopper?
Seth Trimble was
right.
that guy.
Yeah.
But with him out, not particularly.
Who do you think the assignment will fall to cover KJ Lewis and Malik Mack?
I would imagine it would be a guard on guard matchup.
Okay.
So I can't say for sure which will get which.
Do you see any sort of hangover after the big win against Kentucky? Emotionally?
Potentially. I mean, we kind of saw it against after the game. So the game after Carolina beat Kansas was against Radford, and Carolina came out a little slow in that game. It was pretty tight until late in the first half. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing you can get away with against a bad team. If they come out similarly flat against Georgetown, they could definitely be in trouble.
That's been a concern for Georgetown as well. Just slow starts against good teams. They were able to come back several times against Dayton after doing that before they ultimately fell in overtime, but they couldn't get that. They couldn't do it the next day against Miami. They got down early and just never were able to claw back closer to say like 10 late. So it sounds like it's going to be very important for both squads to get off to a good start. And in Georgetown, though, this season has been a better second half team, and I would say also, and generally under Cooley has been better in the second half. What about Carolina under Hubert?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think I would lean towards second half for sure. But we haven't really seen a ton of tight games for the Tar Heels. They've had several bye games, so really they're only big time games were the Kansas game, in which they did play a lot better in the second half, the Michigan State game where it kind of got away from them in the second half, and then Kentucky where they trailed most of the second half, but kind of stole the win in the final minute. So it's kind of, I lean towards them as being a second half team, but I think we may kind of need to see a little bit bigger of a sample size.
And we were talking earlier about the sort of the Carolina way on offense in terms of playing fast, and if you can't get buckets in transition, then you go to your secondary break, and that they've struggled to really establish that identity this year. Do you think? I know it seems like they've also added a lot of ball screens to the sort of taking a page from a lot of NBA offenses and then very ball screen heavy. What do you think that how they will attack Georgetown?
I'd say a lot of that what you talked about, ball
Yeah.
screens. I mean, just one-on-one matchups, try to
Mm-hmm.
take advantage of that size differential. I mean,
Right.
I would not at all be surprised to see them dump it off to Henry Vasar a lot in the paint. Maybe Caleb Wilson drives some. Especially, I think that's one of the things you talk about. We're having the 7-footer battle. If Carolina can get your 7-footer in foul trouble, then that helps them a lot because
Right.
I mean, they don't
Not a lot
necessarily
of depth in George. If Halifanua has foul trouble early, then we'll probably see Jaden Fort come in, who is talented but inexperienced.
yeah. So, I mean, that would only increase the advantage in the front court. So if I'm Carolina, I think I'm looking to run this game through the front court.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. And is this significantly different than Roy's teams looked, or just sort of a tweak?
I think well, kind of depends in some ways on which Roy teams you're talking about. I mean, you go back to the Tyler Hansbrough days, everything ran through him. But, you look at the 2017 title team, it was and even the team the year before from the 2016, it was a little more guard heavy. They did play inside some. They had Bryce Johnson, Isaiah Hicks as well. But yeah, I think it's more about the makeup of the roster. I think what you see from year to year.
And last year they lacked size, and so they obviously that was a point of emphasis in bringing in transfers and recruits.
Correct.
And has that worked out well? Has it been the size they've added been quality or?
Oh, it's worked out very well.
Okay.
It's worked out very well. That's kind of been something that we've been discussing, as with some of the other people on the blog amongst ourselves, is that it's so crazy to now see Carolina pushing people around and having that size advantage underneath when it was the opposite situation in the previous few years.
So if Carolina wins this game, what do you expect will have happened?
They dominated the paint, dominated the boards. I think that's what it comes down to. They, maybe they got the 3-point shooting going. They found a way to limit the guards, limit Georgetown's guards, keep them from getting hot. And they were able to score. And that's the big thing. They were able to score.
And if Carolina lost, what do you think? What would have happened most likely?
They came out flat. They struggled shooting, and somehow they lost the front court battle. Maybe Henry Vasar got in foul trouble like he did against Michigan State. I don't know. Maybe they got out physicaled. Like I said, it is possible to out physical this team.
To answer that question for Georgetown, I'd say if Georgetown were to win this game, they'd have to control tempo, meaning they would have beaten Carolina by a decent margin in points in transition. They would have matched them on the boards and not given up too many offensive rebounds. I would assume KJ Lewis and Mac would have scored probably close to 20 apiece. Julius Halifanua would have avoided foul trouble. And yeah, they would have been able to impose some physicality on this game. If they were to lose, most likely it would be because they got in foul trouble. They shot themselves out of it. They just couldn't hit enough threes. The last game they hit 11, which is the season high. But if they lose this game, it probably means they hit 5, 6, maybe 7 tops. And probably a lack, going back to the foul trouble, a lack of depth in the front court would have been exposed. Now, last I checked, FanDuel had the line at 11.5. That seems really, really high to me. What do you think about that? Carolina favored by 11.5.
I think that's reasonable. Honestly, I could see it. I could see Carolina winning by, low double digits. Maybe I imagine it won't be. It'll be closer than that for most of the game, but I could certainly see them pulling away at the end.
And tell me, I've never been to the Dean Dome. Tell me about the atmosphere there.
Truth be told, I've never actually been to a game there myself.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. It definitely, it's a unique atmosphere for sure from what I've gathered. So I imagine, despite this being kind of a Sunday afternoon, evening game, you should see a decent turnout because a lot of Carolina fans, especially those who are old enough to remember Georgetown's heyday, are probably going to be pretty interested in this matchup.
So you think it'll be close to a sellout? I think the Dean Dome's capacity is like 21,000. You think it'll be close to a sellout?
Maybe.
Sunday. Yeah, Sunday at 5 is a weird.
It is
a weird time.
It is.
So I think that 11.5 is high. I think it's hard to beat most good college teams by that type of margin. I think it'll be closer. I would, if I were a betting man, I would take Georgetown plus 11.5. Do you have speaking of which, do you have a final prediction as far as a score?
I'll say Carolina 82, Georgetown 70.
Okay. I think I'm going to say Carolina 78, Georgetown 71. I think in the end, just being on the road, still struggling to get their defense back to where it was earlier in the season. Facing Caleb Wilson will probably be the best player that they've faced this season. And they're still figuring out how to play without their star big man, Vince Iwuchukwu, who's out still for probably another month or so. I think Carolina will probably dominate that front court matchup, and that will be the difference. Well, Matt, thank you for coming on Bleeding Blue and Gray. Tell our audience where they can find you, and I have posted your preview of this matchup on our Twitter feed. It's great, so everyone please read that. But where can they find you on Twitter or other places?
Yeah, truth be told, I'm not huge on social media, which maybe isn't the best thing for someone in my industry, but
that's a bad thing for someone in the sports media base.
I do have an Instagram.
Okay.
I have a Blue Sky.
All right. Where can they find you on Instagram and Blue Sky?
My Instagram is Matt Bowling 12. I think my Blue Sky is just Matt Bowling. So, and of course, you can find me on Tar Heel Blog as well. I think if you just click my name under one of my articles, it'll take you to my page where I have everything I've written there. So,
okay, great. You guys heard it. Follow Matt on Instagram or Blue Sky. And as for us, follow us at the Big East Energy Network on Instagram, YouTube, and me, Hoya Optimist 33 on Twitter, and then also Bleeding Blue and Gray at BleedBlue1789 on Twitter. Until next time, let's go Hoyas.